Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to Mobile on Air. We're super excited to have you here. We hope that you enjoyed the live stream, and we're really sorry if there were any technical issues with the live stream. Just so you know, all the content will be posted after this, so you'll be able to rewatch just in case you missed anything. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your Google POC, and they'll be happy to help you. So I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Nicola, and I work in marketing in EMEA at Google. I've been working on this role. I've been working this role for about 3 years, and super excited because this is one of the first times that we're getting to bring this content to you online. So really excited to be here. And now I want to quickly introduce my colleagues, Chris and Tamim, who also work on apps with me. And I also want them to tell you about their favorite quarantine app. So, Chris, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Chris. For those of you who are just dialing in, I'm a manager here for mobile apps at Google. I work together with the Central Europe markets, mostly with retail brands and travel clients. The core of my job will typically involve help, first of all, transform businesses to understand the value of an app as well, then implement this app strategy and follow through with the clients in this space. So very excited to be here, and hopefully we'll answer some of your live questions today. I think my favorite app must be Masterclass in this time, a bunch of really interesting courses that I've taken. Recently, I can highly recommend the one on mixology. It definitely comes in handy in these times.
I have to say, I downloaded Masterclass the other day because I saw an ad for a movie making class. I've never been interested in movie making, but it made me want to watch it. So it was super interesting. So yeah, thanks, Chris. Tamim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name again is Tamim Mohsen. I'm a global product lead at Google in the United States. What my role entails is working with the sales team and also our end clients to understand, what do they need from our product? What are some interesting things and features they want to add to it? And also, what are they having challenges with? I take that information, synthesize it, and feed it back to our product and engineering teams so they can develop the future iterations of the roadmap. On the flip side, I work with the product and engineering teams to roll out our alphas and betas so we can get them in the market, have clients test them, use them, and get feedback for the eventual full launch. I love it because it's a bi-directional role, and I get to play with outside parties, the clients themselves and sellers, and also work on the product roadmap internally. Interesting about Masterclass, I'll have to check that out. But my favorite app right now is definitely Mario Kart. When the whole house is asleep and the kids are in bed, I'll fire it up on the phone. And then sometimes I'll actually, my son will come downstairs because he'll hear some noise and he'll come down and watch me play it. It's a great way to relax and kill time after a busy day.
Great one. Yeah, so I have to say my favorite app has been any workout app. There's like 3 of them that I've subscribed to, and used to be a workout class junkie, but now I am enjoying working out from home. So moving on, I want to get into a few pre-submitted questions, and then we'll go into live Q&A. So my first question is for you, Tamim. We've heard a bit about people having issues getting internal stakeholders to actually understand the value of an app and really buy in. So can you tell us why should a company even have an app and how to get the internal stakeholder buy-in?
Yeah, great question. I'll take it in 2 parts. First, why should I have an app, and then the internal stakeholder buy-in. On why an app, I think it relates, strongly to like 3 key vectors here. Number 1 is you just want to make your business experience easy to navigate, easy to use. You want to make sure that people can interact with your company, and an app is a great way to do that because it's size for the screen. You have different flows and user journeys. They're just made for a conducive in-app experience. Second, I think a key thing that should not be lost is our phones are with us all the time, and when your app is on someone's phone out there in the streets or at home, you're with your customer, you're with your end user 24/7, and that's so powerful. And then the third thing is number 1 and 2, drive growth, success, revenue, cost savings for your company in the end. Because if you give someone a great, easy to navigate experience through an app, you're with that person 24/7 in their pocket or on the bedside table. It's conducive and leads to spending more money with you, being with you, answering questions, and building a stronger brand relationship with your end user and client.
Super good answer. And I have to say, my favorite app has been one to get coffee as well, because it shows me which ones are open, and then I can go order it online and I'm ready to go. So it's great. So quickly, I'm now going to go to Chris, because as we've heard from Tamim, this is how you can kind of get buy-in from users and how important apps are. But can you talk with us about how you should actually get app campaigns going once you have the buy-in from your leaders?
Sure. So yeah, as you just said, Nicola, we've got the good situation now. Let's say that we've got the buy-in, we want to get started. Where do we even start there? So I get that question quite a lot with my advertisers. Good thing to keep in mind is even if you have no sophisticated tracking solution in place, you can already optimize on downloads, i.e. generate downloads to expand your user base on Android, as the Google Play Store belongs to the Google ecosystem. So that's the easiest way to get started. And tying into what Tamim said, just keep in mind, what is the business goal? Is it to expand the user base, or is it to go down deeper in the funnel and drive registrations, newsletter subscriptions, purchases, whatever it may be? If you want to do anything like that involving any kind of in-app behavior, you will want to have a tracking solution in place. So it's the same kind of logic that you know from your web activities, just mapping it over to app. Typically, I'd be working together with partners. This is not an exhaustive list, but like Adjust, AppsFlyer, Coachella, Singular, etc. Basically, this allows you to map and track user behavior throughout the app, which then sends these messages or this insight back to Google Ads, and you can optimize towards that. So keeping in mind, that is the tracking basis. If you want to get started, then we can dive further into that in a sec if you like, but bids, budgets, creatives, optimization goals is the next steps where you'd like to go in there.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to go back to Tamim quickly to talk about a few actions that you can take internally to get other people around your app so that you can get to this point. Yeah,
great question. Again, I think there's like 3 ways that I've found people be really successful with this. Number one is, it seems simple, but in any company, especially big companies, it can be hard to do. Just get the data. So get the data and segment between people who aren't using the app, kind of dabble with your app, and then your app power users, and acquire that data and just lay it all out there. Second, when you have that data, look at the revenue that people are driving. Look at the revenue or lifetime value, the LTV of your heavy app users versus your non-app users. And an important lens that you should apply here is, if you can, find time series information on how someone changed their behavior once they went from not using the app to using the app. Because we've seen it in a lot of companies, that's a really powerful stat. Saying client A didn't have an app 2 years ago. They got an app, they downloaded your app, and then now what has their behavior been post-app acquisition? So number one, get the data. Number two, look at the revenue growth from people who are using the app. And number three is, look externally. Look outside of your organization to other companies in your peer set, your benchmark group, and see what they're doing with their app. More and more often, especially now in these unique times, we're seeing apps actually pop up in earnings calls, people talking about their digital experience, their takeout experience, their online experience, their curbside experience. And there's so much data out there about apps that are being used so heavily now with people at home more or on their phones more. So look at what your peers are doing, and see what information you can reap from different public sources, such as investor calls and so on, because that can spur a lot of interest and activity inside your organization.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tamim. So just to quickly mention, if you have any questions, please type below and ask them live. A few of you have, so thank you. And a few of you pre-submitted questions, so we thank you for that. But if you have any other questions, please just let us know. So moving on to the next question, which is for Chris. So one of the things we hear a ton about with app campaigns is creatives. So can you talk a little bit about a creative strategy that would help people to promote their app?
Absolutely. So let's just take a step back. If you've gone through the presentation together with me earlier, you will have realized how machine learning heavy app campaigns are, meaning there's not many different angles with manual intervention that you can take, but creatives is definitely one of them, if not one of the largest. So having a solid creative strategy, just to put that out there, is one of the major distinctions between a medium and high performing app campaign. So when you go about that, work together with your in-house creative agency or your creative partners, or even us at Google here, to have regular assets built out for the app campaign. So you've got a nice refresh rate. Then the second part, it sounds super simple, but makes a big difference, is have the right asset formats in place. So typically we'd want to look at landscape images, nice widescreen, screen-filling images that can just access a whole ton of inventory. Then, of course, video. With a very limited attention span of people nowadays, video just grasps people's attention. So go for landscape as well as portrait video, just to ensure no matter what orientation the user has the phone, it'll be shown and it looks nice. Love the dog there, by the way. Have these creatives in place. Then the last thing I'll just put out there, talk about this a lot with my clients, just fill up all the slots. Use as many images and asset types as you have, all the text, images, and videos, because only then will you be able to iterate. You see, hey, this is performing best, this is not performing as well. Let's cut this out and then add more creative similar to the high-performing ones. By doing that on a regular basis, let's say every 2 to 3 months, refreshing it, you will have the best chance of a high-performing app campaign.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So just moving on to another question around creatives, and this is more for Tamim on the product side. Can you talk a little bit about what Google is doing to give more transparency around creatives and more transparency around which creatives are working and which ones maybe are not working as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help here. We've definitely heard the feedback, and we really appreciate it, that transparency into performance and creatives is key. So there are many ways that we're trying to advance and actually please our customers more. Number one, we're working on advancing some of the functionality in our asset report. So if you go into your Google Ads campaign for universal app campaigns, you can see different statistics and data about your assets. We're actually beginning to introduce new functionality to that asset report. So we have a few things coming out over the next weeks and months that we're really excited about. Number two is actually when you start a universal app campaign, or an app campaign, I should say, with Google, we're going to give you nudges or hints or suggestions on what assets to upload. So you don't, just say, okay, I'm not sure what I should add. Should I add more videos, more pictures, a little of both? Should I flesh out my text lines? We're going to give more information to you in that front end to really help guide you. And thirdly, something that we're going to be doing is internally, we're analyzing a lot of videos and images and even our HTML5 called playable ads to say, like, what are some things that can drive performance of your asset? Is it having your company's title in the first 5 seconds or 15? Is it having the sound on or sound off? Is it having one or multiple characters in the video? We're analyzing thousands of videos, and we're producing data internally that we're going to be converting into slide packs and some PDFs. So either through your Google representative, you're going to acquire this information in the medium and near term, or some of this will even be posted online. Also, Nicole, if your dog has any questions, please let me know. Happy to answer those too live.
She always has many questions. I'm really sorry. I tried to keep her in the other room, but she...
No, very cute.
So yeah, she'll just sit here, hopefully quietly. Okay, so thanks to me. Actually, I have another question for you around how companies can actually drive profitability with apps, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, happy to. I think I alluded to some of this in the presentation, but quite honestly, I hear from Google sellers and even by proxy through our clients, like almost daily, at least weekly, about ways that their app is driving profits for their business. What's really fascinating, I'll give two examples. In the restaurants and food industry, especially before these unique times, people were finding that when people are ordering food for immediate pickup or curbside delivery, companies were actually saving a lot of money in terms of order inaccuracy. So they would have a metric that they would measure internally at the company and saying, how much food did we have to trash or throw away, unfortunately, because the order is inaccurate. And that's pure wastage. By having the information tracked in the app, in the checkout cart, before you actually go through, it removes any misinterpretation. So, you mentioned coffee. When you order your coffee, you can say, oh, actually, like I didn't want regular milk, I wanted soy milk. And that kind of misinterpretation at the counter can be alleviated via the app. Then secondly, that's on the cost side. On the revenue side, companies are driving profits by increasing upsell opportunities in the app. So I know myself, I'm very guilty of it. Whenever I'm ordering through my favorite food app, when I go pick up some dinner, they're always saying, would you like to throw in a cookie? I always say yes. So it's one of those things where you can get revenue growth from your app. So we're seeing a lot of profitability drivers coming through the app experience, a lot in cost savings, but also in revenue growth.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer to me. And yeah, I agree. Whenever, if you see on Grubhub or any of those food delivery apps, if they say, oh, do you want to add this item? Usually I will. Okay, so moving into the live questions, I have one for you, Chris. How do you deal with different or opposite behavior from in the app and their presence on social media?
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one because maybe just putting it out there, why would you assume that the behavior is completely the same on social as it would be on YouTube or Gmail or on search, right? Like oftentimes on social, we see a very strong interest-based kind of targeting and approach versus on, let's say, search, it's much more intent-based. So already quite a big difference. So From my experience, that's completely okay, and it just underlines the fact that different types of approaches, social as well as the Google side, they complement each other versus going against each other. So I think that's the underlying basis here. The second part, if you want to understand anything further about behavior, is what I mentioned earlier. You need some tracking in place. So map out your entire app, understand what the meaningful events are within your app, but also then understand, where do people drop off? Is the funnel too long? Is it too complicated? Is there something not clear? Optimize the UX through this insight to then really understand, okay, what is the behavior about? Then you understand the behavior, you've got the tracking in place, you then will probably understand better how it differs from social, if you hopefully have the insights from there as well. And then just set the bids accordingly, right? Let's bring it back to what can we do. We can optimize creatives. So that's what I'm going to talk about in a second. But then the bids, why are these users valuable to you, and how valuable are they to you? Just put that out there, set that as the target, and the campaign will do its best to literally acquire users as efficiently as possible at that price based on your analytical insights. Then these insights can also fuel the conversation around creative design processes. So similar to what Tamim said, where should we have the messaging? Where should we, how brand-centric should it be? Should it maybe be product-centric? Tailor your messaging based on the insight you have with your creatives, and test along the way. Don't just go for one bash of creatives and then leave it there, but instead just put some creatives out with different angles that allow you to then iterate and then narrow down maybe on the particular behavior that you see on the Google side versus social.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Great answer. So we have a few more live questions coming in. Here's another one. Most apps, like coffee shop apps, are event-based. Do you have any advice on how to communicate with your app users and finding a balance between staying top of mind, but not overstepping by communicating too much? And maybe to me, I think that this one is for you. It sounds a bit product-based.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. So I think of this in the vein of engagement. So making sure that once your end user has your app, that you are staying close to them, but not giving them too much signal and over communicating. There's no perfect answer, right? It depends on the type of company you're with. So if you are ticket and events based, you may not be going to a movie or a sporting event every week. If you are food based, then maybe every week is a healthy cadence. So I think the first thing I think about, the dominant vector of this decision-making process is the type of app and the frequency of general interaction by your power customers. That's number one. Number two is, I see people have success when they err on not communicating until you have something new and rather valuable to share. So again, it depends on the type of company, but you don't want to over push notification or ping people unless there's something. It doesn't have to be seismic, but notable, I like to say. So if it's a regular sale, that's fine. But if it's hey, we have like a monthly special, that's probably more appropriate for a push. And then thirdly, I think, this is something that we're still rolling out with Google right now, is our engagement solution. So, over time, we'll be seeing more coming from Google and app campaigns regarding what we can do with engagement with you to make sure that, someone who has your app can keep it top of mind. That's something a little bit more forward-looking. But if you do have a Google POC, that's someone you can connect to about this future vision for our product arena.
Awesome. Thanks, Tamim. So we have another live question here about creative. So I think you both, Tamim, maybe you can take it from the product side, and Chris, you can take it from your experience working with clients. So the question is, regarding optimizing creatives, does reintroducing the same creative give different performance from the first time?
Okay, so that's an interesting one. So whoever asked the question clearly understands that the campaign goes into a learning phase at the beginning when you introduce new creatives, same kind of logic as if you were to restart the campaign. At the end of the day, every time you introduce an asset, the campaign will go into somewhat of an evaluation mode to see how does it fit into the overall performance. Is it conducive to driving results? Is it conducive to driving results at the target CPA or target CPI you've set, and so on? Is it better or worse than the asset mix that you have in place? So on a very high level way, yes, it will probably have a somewhat short-term different performance if you reintroduce the asset. However, if the market dynamics haven't changed, if your target audience hasn't changed, if your app UI, UX offering hasn't changed, then why would the creative lead to different results? It's not suddenly going to have a completely different approach. Most likely, the campaign will just drop back into the kind of performance that it had, or the asset would drop back into the previous performance that you experienced. So if you want to have different results, introduce different creatives. There's no real way around that.
Awesome, thank you. And Tamim, do you want to talk about this a bit from the product side?
Yeah, I think Chris pretty much hit the nail on the head right now. The one thing I would add is you never know how a creative will perform based on a different network or our whole say set of options with Google. So I hear a lot about is this creative right for this campaign, or I use this creative on a different network or with a different partner. Now let me use it with you. And one thing that I really love about the Google App Campaigns product is it surfaces on numerous inventory sources, right? It can be while you're playing an app, you get an ad, or while you're watching YouTube. So something that worked in setting A may work better or differently in setting B. So you don't want to assume that, just because this was great on this network, it's going to be great here. This was not so great for me here, it won't be great there. We say, take that with a bit of optimism and a little bit of caution too, because you don't want to mentally kind of dial back on something and prejudge how great your creative could perform, because you never know where you're going to find an opportunity. There's some anecdotes I can give. I'll give one of them. I won't talk about the client name, where a client said, I'm not sure this specific asset, it was for a sports wagering type of business. I'm not sure that this asset will work, because everyone cares about, football/soccer or whatnot. And this asset performed really well because there was a boxing match, and all of the other competing campaigns didn't have pictures, videos related to boxing matches, but there was a really big boxing match happening. And this app's performance went through the roof in a great way. And it just goes to show that you never know which creative will really do really well and propel your business, because there's so many different dynamics happening at any point in time. And this goes back to what Chris said at the very beginning, thank you, Chris, about having really good coverage, because you never know if there's going to be an opportunity that one of your assets can take advantage of. So we highly recommend making sure that you upload a diverse set of assets for your campaign.
Awesome, thank you for that answer. So I have a couple more questions coming in from Peter. So the first one is, how can advertisers be guided by user behavior in order to reduce costs for a B2B app in order to drive value for both businesses? And then the other one is around, is TCPA and TCPI influenced by the uninstall rate, or is it purely creative driven? So maybe Chris, do you want to take these and kind of answer them both at once, because I think they're quite tied in together.
First of all, love the engagement here, Peter. Thank you so much. Sure, let's start with the last question. So like you said, is the target CPA, CPI influenced by other factors? At the end of the day, your target CPI and A is influenced by you. You set that. That's the target that you give the campaign to drive the results you look for at that rate as an average, right? So at the end of the day, you set it, so you're the only one influencing it. The actual CPA or CPI, however, will obviously first of all depend on your target, but also then depend on market dynamics. That's where you have these millions and millions of signals. Uninstall rate is, I don't know how much that would actually influence it, because we're looking at acquisition at the first rate. So it could be that might be a signal, hey, these kind of users typically uninstall it. However, that's more like a retention metric and less an acquisition metric. So let's just keep in mind, we're mostly with CPA, CPI talking about the first stage of the interaction. Let's go to the second question. So Nicola, I believe you talked about B2B businesses and how user behavior can be guided, or how you can use user behavior to reduce costs. Reducing costs, if that is your goal, again, I make the assumption that means driving efficiency, because reducing costs, if you have fantastic outcome, right? If you invest €1 and you get 10 million euros back, why would you want to reduce costs? So from what I understand, I think it goes more in the direction how to drive efficiency. Simply said, you can understand, you can drive efficiency by bringing your bid down. That'll tell the campaign as an incentive, drive as many results as possible at the slightly lower target that you're setting. That's very straightforward, very easy. I think the second kind of approach, user behavior, again, is in-app. So if we're looking at actual acquisition costs, in-app behavior should come second, or inform maybe the creative design. All right, so here's one example how you can use user behavior. Look at what are users most interested in your B2B app, which offering actually attracts the most volume and the most interest, and then maybe take that and specifically mention it in one of your ad groups in your app campaigns, right? So moving away from a very generic brand focused B2B messaging instead of a solution offering based messaging based on the insights that you gained from your actual app. So that could be one way to do that. Again, look at what kind of touch points do you have at the acquisition stage. It's literally the creative, what people are seeing. So the more you can impact that, the better it'll be, also for a B2B app.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I think that was a great answer. So I think that's it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to your Google POC. One thing that we notably didn't mention today is anything about Firebase, and that's one thing that we have a lot of information on, but today we decided not to touch on that. We have another live stream coming up in a couple weeks, which will actually focus fully on Firebase. So if you're interested, there'll be links in the description, and also you can reach out to your Google POC who will be able to forward you the info. So just wanted to mention that just in case that's a question that you had and you didn't get an answer today. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We hope you found this useful and appreciate you being engaged and coming to our events even when they're online. So thank you, everyone, and hopefully we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.